In this lecture, we will learn about CSS entities. CSS entities are combinations that allow us to display characters in HTML. There are many CSS entities, but we will cover some cool ones in this lecture. The format for a CSS entity is as follows: open quote, escape character, 4 characters that are letters or numbers, and finally a closing quote. For the first set of examples we are going to look at, let's create a paragraph element with some example text inside of it to start things off. Next, we will add an opening and closing style tag to our page so that we can write some style code. Inside of our style tags, we will add a style to the paragraph element and use the before pseudo class to specify that we want to insert content before our text. We will also use the CSS entity code 262F to display a yin and yang symbol before our text. Then we will go to the web browser and run our code. As you can see, there is now a yin and yang symbol to the left of our paragraph element. Let's jump back to the editor. There are tons of CSS entities that we can use to insert cool characters into our web page content. If we want to instead add a playing card spade symbol before our text, we can change the code to 2660 and run the code to see the change. As you can see, there is a spade symbol to the left of the text. Then we will go back to the editor and look at another example. To insert a club playing card symbol before the text, we use the code 2663. Let's change the code to 2663 and then go to the web browser and run our code. We will see a club to the left-hand side of our text. Let's jump back to the editor. A code of 2665 allows us to add the heart playing card symbol. We will change the code to 2665 and then run our code in the web browser. You will notice that a heart symbol is now displayed to the left of our text. Let's go back to the editor. Changing the code to 2666 will let us add the playing card diamond character to our text. We will change the code to 2666 and then go to the web browser and run our code. As you can see, there is now a diamond on the right-hand side of the text. We will now go back to the editor. Want to add all 4 characters in a row before our text? Simply add all of the codes to the content. We will add the code 2660, 2663, 2665, and 2666 all to our string of content. Of course, don't forget the escape character before each. Let's go to the web browser and run our code to see the result. You will notice that all 4 playing card symbols are now displayed on the left-hand side of the text. Let's jump back to the editor. To add a music note to our content, we can use the character code 266B. Let's change the code to 266B and then go to the web browser. When we run our code, you will notice that a music note is now displayed to the left of our paragraph element. Let's go back to the editor. If you want to add a warning symbol before the text content, you can use the CSS entity code 26A0. We will change the code to 26A0 and then run our code in the web browser. Now there is a warning sign to the left of our text. Let's go back to the editor. Another cool thing we can do with these CSS entities is to use them as bullet points for lists that we create. To illustrate this concept, let's add an unordered list to our code and give it 3 list elements: item 1, item 2, and item 3. Then we will change the style to apply to the li tag instead of the p tag. We will also give our li element a list style type of none. We need to do this in a new block of code since the current block is using the before pseudo class. Let's use the entity code 2714 to add a checkmark character before each item in the list. To see the result of these changes, let's go to the web browser and run our code. You will notice that a checkmark is next to each item in the list now. Let's jump back to the editor. If we want to add a checkmark with a different look and feel to it, we can use another checkmark entity that has a code of 2705. Let's change the code to 2705 and then run our code in the web browser to see our change take effect. Then we will go back to the editor and look at another example. Some CSS entities are arrows. These also make for good list item markers. Let's change the entity code to 21D2 and run our code to see the result. There is now an arrow next to each item in the list. Then we will jump back to the editor. Another style of arrow has entity code 2192. Let's change the code to 2192 and then run our code in the web browser to see the result. Then we will jump back to the editor. Another useful entity for drawing attention to list items is a hand with a finger pointing at the list item. This entity has a code of 261E. When we run the code, you will see what this looks like in the web browser. Since there is a lot of detail in this entity, you may have to zoom in to see it clearly. Let's go back to the editor and look at another example. We can also use CSS entities as content at the end of our elements. Let's go back to using a paragraph element with example text inside of it. Then we will change our style to use the after pseudo class on the paragraph element. To add an ellipsis character, we can use the entity code 2026. Let's go to the web browser and run our code. Now there is an ellipsis character on the right-hand side of our text. Let's jump back to the editor. If we want to add a double exclamation point after our text, we could use the entity code 203C. We will change the code to 203C and then run our code in the browser to see the result. As you can see, there is now a double exclamation mark to the right of our text. There are many more CSS entities that you can use. This video just showed an example of how to use some of them. In the next lecture, we will learn about CSS units.